Commander Vexstar stood before the massive viewing window of the Domination's edge, watching the small blue planet grow larger as his fleet approached. Behind him, 24 of the Empire's finest military cadets waited in perfect formation, their purple-scaled faces showing the calm confidence that came with superior breeding and training. "Observe this pathetic world," Vexstar said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 systems for the Zilithian Empire. "Third planet from a dying yellow star? The inhabitants call it Earth. They have barely learned to leave their atmosphere, and their weapons are still based on chemical explosives." The cadets exchanged amused glances. Chemical weapons were something their ancestors had used thousands of years ago, before they discovered plasma technology and energy shields. Fighting such primitives would be like using modern warships against wooden boats. "Sir," spoke Cadet Zarkith, the top student in his class, "why are we wasting time with such inferior beings? Surely there are better challenges for our final examination." Vexstar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. "Because, young warrior, even the mightiest blade must be tested on simple wood before it cuts through steel. This exercise will teach you the fundamentals of planetary conquest without the risk of actual danger." On the planet below, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command center of the North American defense grid, staring at the screens that showed 23 massive alien vessels entering Earth's solar system. The ships were unlike anything inhuman. Records, sleek and deadly, with energy signatures that made Earth's most advanced nuclear reactors look like campfires. "Sir," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her communications station, "we're picking up transmissions from the alien fleet. The computer is trying to decode them, but it's going to take time." Morrison nodded grimly. He had been expecting this. For years, ever since the deep space monitoring stations had detected the first signs of advanced alien technology. Earth's governments had quietly prepared for this moment, but no one had imagined it would come so soon. "Get me a direct line to Colonel Harrison at Fort Braxton," Morrison ordered, "and patch me through to all military commanders worldwide. It's time to activate the defense protocol." The alien transmissions continued to flow through Earth's communication networks, and slowly the translation computers began to make sense of the strange language. What they revealed sent chills through every intelligence officer who read the reports. "Training Ground 7 has been reached," came the first translated message. "Beginning standard conquest exercise. Points will be awarded as follows. Military. Installations are worth 50 points each. Civilian population centers are worth 100 points. And complete planetary surrender is worth 500 bonus points." Amy Rodriguez felt sick as she read the translations. The aliens were treating Earth like a game, with human lives as nothing more than scoring opportunities for their military students. 3,000 miles away, Colonel Pete Harrison was reading the same reports in his office at Fort Braxton. Harrison commanded the 1st Orbital Drop Regiment, Earth's most elite fighting force. His soldiers were trained for the most dangerous missions imaginable, dropped from orbit into hostile territory with nothing but their equipment and their training. "Sir," said his aide, Lieutenant Dan Cooper, "we're getting reports from the space monitoring stations. The alien ships are moving into attack formation. They'll be in range of our major cities within 6 hours. Harrison stood and walked to the window, looking out at the training grounds where his soldiers practiced their deadly craft. These men and women were the best Earth had to offer, warriors who had been selected for their ability to think quickly, adapt to any situation, and never give up no matter how impossible the odds. "Contact all drop trooper units," Harrison ordered. "Full combat alert, prepare for immediate deployment." Above Earth's atmosphere, the Zilithian cadets were receiving their final briefings. Each student had been assigned a specific target, ranging from military bases to major population centers. The exercise was designed to test their ability to coordinate attacks, manage resources, and demonstrate tactical superiority. "Remember," Commander Vexstar told his students, "speed and overwhelming force are the keys to victory. These humans have never faced advanced military technology. They will panic and surrender quickly once they understand the futility of resistance. Cadet Zarkith studied the holographic display showing his assigned target, a military installation in the North American continent. Intelligence reports indicated it was home to several thousand human soldiers. But their weapons were primitive and their training was based on fighting other humans rather than advanced alien forces. "Sir," Zarkith asked, "what if the humans attempt to use their nuclear weapons?" Vextar's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. "Their nuclear technology is crude and slow. Our shields can deflect their most powerful weapons with ease. Besides, they would never use such weapons on their own planet. These creatures are too sentimental about their homeworld." The first wave of Silithian landing craft began their descent toward Earth's surface. The ships were beautiful works of art, their hulls gleaming with energy fields that deflected radar and absorbed incoming fire. Each craft carried a dozen elite soldiers equipped with plasma rifles, personal shields, and armor that could stop any human weapon. Captain Morrison watched the alien ships enter Earth's atmosphere on his tactical display. Anti-aircraft missiles, launched from dozens of installations, but the primitive weapons seemed to have no effect on the advanced alien technology. The ships continued their descent, heading for targets across the globe. "Sir," Amy Rodriguez reported, "we're picking up more transmissions. The aliens are discussing point values for different types of targets. They're treating our cities like prizes in a contest." Morrison's jaw tightened. The aliens had made their first mistake by underestimating human determination. They saw Earth as a training ground, but they had no idea what kind of enemy they were about to face. Colonel Harrison received the final target assignments for his drop troopers. The aliens were landing near major military installations around the world, expecting to find easy victories against poorly equipped human forces. Instead, they would encounter soldiers who had spent their entire careers preparing for exactly this kind of impossible fight. "All units prepare for immediate deployment," Harrison announced over the communications system. "The enemy thinks we're target practice. Let's show them what Earth's defenders are really capable of." The first Silithian landing craft touched down in a field outside Fort Braxton. Cadet Zarkith emerged from the ship with his squad, scanning the surrounding area with advanced sensors. The human base was less than a mile away, and thermal imaging showed thousands of heat signatures moving in what appeared to be panicked confusion. "Too easy," Zarkith muttered to his squad mates. "These primitives are probably running in circles, trying to figure out what's happening." The other cadets laughed as they activated their energy shields and began advancing toward the human base. Their plasma rifles were charged and ready, their armor gleaming in the sunlight. This would be the simplest military exercise in the academies. History. But in the forests around Fort Braxton, Sergeant Lisa Chun and her squad of drop troopers were watching the aliens through high-powered scopes. These soldiers had spent years training for asymmetric warfare, learning to fight enemies with superior technology and numbers. They had studied every aspect of modern combat, from urban warfare to psychological operations. "Look at them," Chun whispered to her squad, walking in perfect formation, shields blazing like neon signs. "They have no idea what they're walking into." The aliens continued their advance, confident in their technological superiority. They had conquered dozens of worlds using the same tactics, and they saw no reason why this backward planet should be any different. They were about to discover that. Earth's defenders had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. The drop troopers were ready to show the galaxy what human warfare really meant. Cadet Zarkith led his squad across the open field toward Braxton, his energy shield glowing softly in the morning sunlight. The human base looked primitive from the outside, with simple concrete buildings and metal fences that would never stop a plasma blast. His sensors showed hundreds of heat signatures moving inside the facility, but they seemed to be moving in organized patterns rather than panicking. "Strange," Zarkith muttered to his squad mate, Cadet Velron. "The intelligence. Reports said these humans would be terrified when they saw our ships. They should be running away or surrendering by now." Velron adjusted his plasma rifle and scanned the tree line around them. Maybe they're too primitive to understand what's happening. Some species don't realize they're being invaded until it's too late. The two cadets continued their advance, followed by 10 more Zilithian soldiers. They moved in perfect formation, just as they had been taught in the academy. Their instructors had drilled them on the importance of maintaining proper spacing, keeping their shields active, and advancing in coordinated waves. Hidden in the forest 300 yards away, Sergeant Lisa Chun watched the aliens through her rifle scope. She had been fighting in conflicts around the world for 8 years, and she had never seen an enemy move with such predictable patterns. The aliens were walking in straight lines, maintaining exact distances between each soldier, and their glowing shields made them easy targets even in broad daylight. "Johnson," she whispered into her radio, "you see these guys? They're moving like they're on parade." Private Bobby Johnson was positioned 50 yards to her left, also watching the alien advance. "Yeah, Sarge, it's like they've never heard of cover or concealment. Should we take them now?" "Negative," Chun replied. "Let them get closer. Colonel Harrison wants to see what these aliens can do before we show them what we can do." The Zilithian squad reached the outer fence of Fort Braxton. Zarkith raised his plasma rifle and fired a single shot at the metal barrier. The energy beam sliced through the fence like it was paper, creating a 10-foot gap that his squad could walk through easily. "Too simple," Zarkith said to his soldiers. "These humans build their defenses out of materials that our training weapons could destroy. This won't even count as combat experience." The aliens stepped through the gap and began walking toward the main buildings. Zarkith expected to see human soldiers running in panic or trying to set up defensive positions with their primitive weapons. Instead, the base seemed almost empty, with only a few figures visible in the distance. What Zarkith didn't know was that Colonel Harrison had ordered his soldiers to pull back to prepared positions inside the buildings. The drop troopers had spent months turning Fort Braxton into a maze of carefully planned kill zones, with hidden firing positions and escape routes that would allow them to strike and disappear. "All units, hold your positions," Harrison's voice came through the radio system. "Let them come to us. Remember, we want to learn how they fight before we show them how we fight." The Zilithian squad reached the first building, a simple concrete structure that housed administrative offices. Zarkith gestured for his soldiers to surround the building while he and Velron prepared to enter through the front door. "Scan for life signs," Zarkith ordered. Velron activated his sensor equipment and studied the readings. "I'm detecting 12 heat signatures inside. They appear to be human soldiers, but they're not moving. They might be hiding." Zarkith nodded and stepped toward the door. According to his training, frightened primitives would either surrender immediately or try to fight with desperate, uncoordinated attacks. Either way, his superior technology and training would make quick work of them. He was completely unprepared for what happened next. The moment Zarkith reached for the door handle, the entire building erupted in a coordinated explosion. But it wasn't the kind of explosion the aliens expected. Instead of a single blast, the humans had set up a series of carefully timed charges that brought down specific sections of the building while leaving others intact. Zarkith's energy shield protected him from the flying debris, but the explosion created a massive dust cloud that interfered with his sensors. Worse, the collapsing building had created a maze of rubble and smoke that made it impossible to see more than a few feet in any direction. "Velron, report," Zarkith shouted into his communicator. "I'm alive, but I can't see anything," came the reply. "My sensors are being blocked by all this dust and metal fragments." What the aliens didn't understand was that the humans had just turned their technological advantage into a disadvantage. The Zilithian sensors and energy shields worked perfectly in clean environments, but they had trouble functioning in the chaotic conditions that human soldiers thrived in. From concealed positions in the rubble, Staff Sergeant Carlos Martinez and his squad opened fire with conventional human weapons. They weren't trying to penetrate the aliens' energy shields directly. Instead, they were using the ancient human tactic of suppressing fire, keeping the enemy pinned down while other soldiers moved into better positions. Keep them confused, Martinez ordered his men. Don't let them see where the shots are coming from. The Zilithian soldiers tried to return fire, but their plasma rifles were designed for precision shooting in open areas. In the dusty, chaotic environment the humans had created, they couldn't get clear shots at their enemies. Zarkov activated his emergency beacon, calling for support from the other Zilithian units. This was supposed to be a simple training exercise, but his squad was trapped in conditions they had never trained for. "Command, this is Zarkov," he spoke into his communicator. "We're encountering unexpected resistance. The humans are using crude but effective tactics, requesting immediate support." On the Domination's edge, Commander Vexstar received the message with growing annoyance. A single squad of his finest cadets should have been able to secure a human military base within minutes. The fact that they were calling for help was embarrassing. "Send in the second wave," Vexstar ordered. "And remind the cadets that this is supposed to be a training exercise, not a full-scale battle." But back on Earth, Captain Morrison was coordinating the defense from his command center. The aliens had made their first major mistake by assuming that human tactics would be simple and predictable. Instead, the drop troopers were fighting exactly the way they had been trained to fight superior opponents. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, "we're getting reports from bases around the world. The aliens are using the same tactics everywhere. They advance in formation, rely on their energy shields, and expect us to fight them in open combat." Morrison nodded grimly. "Then we don't give them what they expect. Order all units to fall back to prepared positions. Make them come to us on our terms." At Fort Braxton, Sergeant Chun and her squad were moving through the underground tunnels that connected the base's buildings. The humans had spent years preparing for exactly this kind of invasion, creating a network of hidden passages that would allow them to strike from unexpected directions. "Johnson, take your team and hit them from the east side," Chun ordered. "I'll take my people around to the west. We'll catch them in a crossfire." The Zilithian reinforcements arrived just as Chun's plan went into action. The second wave of alien soldiers advanced toward the damaged building, expecting to find their comrades fighting a desperate human defense. Instead, they walked into a carefully planned ambush. Human soldiers emerged from concealed positions in the rubble, firing from multiple directions simultaneously. The aliens' energy shields could stop direct hits, but the constant barrage of bullets and explosions made it impossible for them to coordinate their response. "This is impossible," Velron shouted to Zarkov. "These primitives are fighting like they've been planning this for years." What Velron didn't understand was that the humans had been planning this for years. Every drop trooper had studied the tactics that would be needed to fight technologically superior enemies. They had trained in urban warfare, asymmetric combat, and psychological operations. Dr. Helen Carter, working in a secure bunker beneath the base, was analyzing the alien equipment that had been damaged in the fighting. The energy shields were impressive, but they had weaknesses that human engineers could exploit. "The shields are designed to stop high-energy impacts," she reported to Colonel Harrison. "But they're not as effective against multiple low-energy hits. If we can overwhelm them with enough small projectiles, we might be able to break through." Harrison smiled grimly. "Then we give them more than they can handle." The battle for Fort Braxton continued for 3 hours, with the humans using every trick they had learned in decades of warfare. They turned the base into a maze of death traps, used the aliens' own technology against them, and showed that superior equipment meant nothing without superior tactics. By the time the fighting ended, half of the Zilithian assault force had been eliminated or captured. The survivors retreated to their ships, carrying reports that would shock the entire alien fleet. The humans weren't primitive savages who would panic at the sight of advanced technology. They were warriors who had turned warfare into an art form, and they were just getting started. General Throckmor arrived at the Zilithian fleet with 3 full battle cruisers and a reputation for crushing rebellions across the galaxy. He had received the emergency transmission from Commander Vexstar with growing disbelief. A training exercise against primitive humans had turned into a military disaster that required veteran intervention. Show me the reports, Throckmor demanded as he stepped onto the bridge of the Domination's edge. Commander Vextar handed him a datapad filled with casualty reports and tactical analyses. Sir, the humans are not fighting the way our intelligence predicted. They're using guerrilla tactics, environmental weapons, and psychological warfare techniques that our cadets have never encountered. Throckmor studied the reports with the cold efficiency of a career soldier. He had fought in 17 major campaigns and had never seen such creative use of primitive technology. The humans were turning their own weaknesses into advantages, using the aliens' superior equipment against them. These creatures are more cunning than we expected, Throckmor admitted. But they're still using chemical weapons against plasma technology. Deploy the Crimson Guard. We'll end this exercise quickly and properly. On Earth, Major Susan Kelly was preparing New Detroit for the next wave of alien attacks. The city had been partially evacuated, but thousands of civilians remained in the underground shelters that the military had been secretly building for decades. Kelly's job was to turn the urban environment into a death trap for any alien forces that tried to occupy it. Remember, she told her squad leaders, we're not trying to hold territory. We're trying to make the aliens pay for every block they take. Use the buildings, the sewers, the subway tunnels. Make them afraid to turn every corner. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks was setting up his demolition charges on the Jefferson Bridge, the main route into the city center. The bridge was a beautiful piece of architecture, but it would make an even more beautiful weapon if the aliens tried to use it. How much explosive are we talking about? Asked Sergeant Tim Walker, who was helping to place the charges. Enough. To drop the whole bridge into the river, Brooks replied. But we're not just going to blow it up. We're going to wait until it's full of alien troops, then turn it into the biggest trap in military history. The Zilithian Crimson Guard began their assault on New Detroit with overwhelming force. Unlike the inexperienced cadets who had attacked Fort Braxton, these were veteran soldiers who had conquered entire worlds. They advanced in coordinated waves, using heavy weapons and personal shields that could stop human artillery. Captain Morrison watched the alien advance from his command bunker outside the city. The aliens were using textbook tactics, securing key positions and establishing supply lines exactly as their military manuals recommended. They had learned from the mistakes at Fort Braxton and were taking the human resistance seriously. They're good, Morrison admitted to his staff, but they're still thinking like they're fighting a conventional army. They don't understand that. We're fighting a different kind of war. The first sign of trouble came when the Crimson Guard tried to secure the city's power station. The building appeared to be defended by a small group of human soldiers who retreated as soon as the aliens approached. The Zilithian commander ordered his troops to occupy the facility, expecting to find important intelligence about human technology. Instead, they found that the entire power station had been rigged as a massive booby trap. The moment the aliens entered the main control room, Sergeant Carlos Martinez triggered the detonation sequence from his position 2 miles away. The explosion didn't just destroy the power station. It sent a cascade of electrical failures through the city's grid, creating a blackout that interfered with alien sensors and communication systems. Welcome to New Detroit, Martinez said into his radio. Population, 0 aliens. The urban warfare that followed was unlike anything the Zilithian military had ever experienced. The humans didn't try to hold fixed positions or defend strategic locations. Instead, they turned the entire city into a weapon, using everything from traffic lights to fire hydrants as tools of war. Major Kelly's forces emerged from manholes and building foundations, striking at alien patrols before disappearing back into the urban maze. They used the city's vertical space to their advantage, rappelling from skyscrapers and using rooftop positions to coordinate attacks from multiple directions. Sir, reported Captain Amy Rodriguez from her mobile command post, we're intercepting alien communications. They're calling for orbital support. They want to use their ship's weapons to level the entire city. Morrison had been expecting this. The aliens' response to tactical defeat was always the same: overwhelming firepower from orbit. But the humans had prepared for this possibility too. "Activate the orbital defense grid," Morrison ordered. "It's time to show these aliens that Earth isn't as defenseless as they think." The Zilithian flagship began charging its main plasma cannon, preparing to reduce New Detroit to ash and rubble. General Throckmor watched the targeting display with satisfaction. If the humans wanted to fight dirty, he would show them what real military power looked like. "Fire when ready," he commanded. The massive energy beam lanced down from orbit, aimed at the heart of New Detroit. But instead of striking the city, it hit something that the aliens hadn't expected: a defensive shield generated by hidden installations around the metropolitan area. Dr. Helen Carter had been working on the shield technology for 3 years, using principles reverse-engineered from captured alien equipment. The shield couldn't stop a sustained orbital bombardment, but it could deflect the first few shots and give the humans time to respond. "Now," Morrison said quietly, hidden launch sites around the city activated simultaneously, sending a barrage of missiles toward the alien fleet. The missiles weren't carrying conventional warheads. Instead, they were loaded with electromagnetic pulse devices designed to disrupt alien technology. The Domination's Edge shuddered as the EMP missiles detonated around the ship's hull. The alien shields held, but the electromagnetic interference scrambled their sensors and communication systems. For the first time in the battle, the humans had struck back at the alien fleet directly. "Impossible!" General Throckmor snarled. "These primitives shouldn't have weapons that can reach orbit." But the humans were just getting started. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Rivers led a strike team through the city's subway tunnels, using the underground network to approach the alien command post that had been established in the financial district. "Remember," Rivers told his soldiers, "we're not here to destroy their equipment, we're here to capture it. Every piece of alien technology we take is a weapon we can use against them." The assault on the alien command post was swift and brutal. The Zilithian soldiers were expecting attacks from street level, not from beneath the ground. Rivers' team emerged from subway grates and basement entrances, overwhelming the alien guards. Before they could respond, the intelligence they captured was invaluable. The aliens' military structure, their technology specifications, and most importantly, their plans for conquering Earth. Dr. Carter's research team analyzed the data and made a shocking discovery. "They're not just here for a training exercise," Carter reported to Morrison. "This is a scouting mission. They're testing our defenses before a full-scale invasion." The battle for New Detroit continued for 12 hours, with the humans using every advantage they could find. They turned the aliens' superior technology against them, used their own urban environment as a weapon, and showed that primitive tactics could defeat advanced equipment when used with intelligence and creativity. The turning point came when Lieutenant Commander Brooks finally triggered the charges on Jefferson Bridge. The aliens had been using the bridge to move heavy equipment into the city center, and Brooks waited until it was packed with troops and vehicles before detonating the explosives. The bridge collapsed in a spectacular display of human engineering, taking 300 alien soldiers and 24 vehicles with it. The explosion was visible from orbit, and it sent a clear message to the Zilithian fleet. Earth's defenders were not going to make conquest easy. General Throckmor watched the destruction from his command ship, finally understanding that he was facing an enemy unlike any he had encountered before. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting with the kind of desperate creativity that came from a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving requests for reinforcements from all ground units. The humans are using tactics that our soldiers have never seen before." Throckmor nodded grimly. The practice exercise had become a full-scale military campaign, and the aliens were learning that Earth's defenders were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. "Contact the High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we need the full battle. Fleet, these humans are going to require our complete attention." The Crimson Guard elite arrived on Earth with a reputation that had spread fear across 17 star systems. These weren't training cadets or regular soldiers. They were the Zilithian Empire's finest warriors, veterans who had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds with ruthless efficiency. General Throckmar watched their landing ships descend toward Earth with confidence. Surely these elite troops would end the embarrassing resistance once and for all. Captain Amy Rodriguez sat in her underground command bunker, intercepting alien communications with equipment that had been modified using captured Zilithian technology. The breakthrough had come 3 days earlier when Dr. Helen Carter discovered that the aliens' quantum communication networks could be traced and infiltrated. The elite forces are landing in 6 locations, Rodriguez reported to Colonel Harrison. They're planning coordinated strikes on our major defensive positions? But sir, I think I've found something even better than their battle plans. Rodriguez had discovered that the Zilithian communication system relied on quantum entanglement networks that connected every soldier to their command structure. The aliens could coordinate perfectly because they shared information instantly, across vast distances. But Rodriguez and tech specialist Sergeant Kevin Park had found a way to hack into these networks. If we can feed false information into their system, Rodriguez explained, we can turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. We can make them coordinate attacks against empty positions while our real forces hit them from unexpected directions. Colonel Harrison smiled grimly. The aliens had superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy that could turn their own advantages against them. To do it, he ordered. Let's see how well they fight when they can't trust their own information. Major Susan Kelly was preparing for the defense of Chicago when the first reports came in from the alien landing sites. The Crimson Guard elite were moving with precision and overwhelming force, using tactics that had proven successful against every other species they had encountered. But Kelly and her drop troopers had spent weeks studying the captured alien equipment and battle recordings. They understood how the Zilithians fought, and more importantly, they understood how to make the aliens fight on human terms. Remember, Kelly told her squad leaders, we're not trying to match their firepower. We're trying to make them so confused and frustrated that they start making mistakes. Use the city like a weapon, make every street corner a nightmare for them. The Crimson Guard's first target was the Willis Tower, which they believed housed a major human command center. The alien forces surrounded the building with overwhelming firepower, preparing to storm the structure and capture the human leadership. What they found instead was an empty building filled with carefully placed speakers that broadcast fake radio, chatter, and heat-generating devices that mimicked human body signatures. While 300 elite alien soldiers wasted their time attacking an empty skyscraper, Kelly's real forces were moving through the subway tunnels beneath the city. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks had taken urban warfare to a new level. His demolition teams had spent days rigging the city's infrastructure with hidden explosives and improvised weapons. Every manhole cover could become a grenade. Every fire hydrant could flood a street, and every traffic light could be turned into a signal for coordinated attacks. The aliens fight like they're playing chess, Brooks explained to his team. Everything is planned and coordinated, but we're going to play a different game. We're going to play like we're in a street fight where the only rule is that there are no rules. The Zilithian forces advanced through Chicago using their standard tactics, secure key intersections, establish communication posts, and move in coordinated formations. They had conquered dozens of worlds using these methods, and they saw no reason why Earth should be different. They were completely unprepared for what happened next. The first surprise came when Sergeant Carlos Martinez triggered a series of explosions that turned an entire city block into a maze of rubble and fire. But these weren't random explosions. Martinez had carefully planned each blast to create specific types of obstacles that would force the aliens to move in predictable directions. Now they have to come through the financial district, Martinez reported to Kelly, right into our kill zone. The aliens found themselves funneled into narrow streets where their superior numbers meant nothing. Worse, the humans were using the city's own infrastructure against them. Traffic lights had been reprogrammed to create coordination signals for human forces. Street cameras provided real-time intelligence about alien movements. Even the city's emergency broadcast system had been turned into a weapon, broadcasting sounds that interfered with Zilithian communication equipment. Dr. Carter made her most important discovery while analyzing the neural implants that allowed Zilithian soldiers to coordinate so perfectly. The implants connected each soldier to the central command network, but they also created a vulnerability that no one had expected. The implants operate on specific electromagnetic frequencies, Carter explained to Colonel Harrison. If we can generate interference on those frequencies, we can disrupt their entire coordination system. Sergeant Major Lisa Torres led the first field test of Carter's discovery. Her team used modified human radio equipment to broadcast electromagnetic interference directly at a Zilithian patrol. The results were immediate and dramatic. The alien soldiers, who had been moving in perfect formation, suddenly began stumbling and firing at random targets. Their neural implants, overwhelmed by the interference, couldn't maintain the connection to their command network. For the first time in their lives, the Zilithian soldiers were fighting as individuals instead of as a coordinated unit. "It's working," Torres reported excitedly. "The aliens are completely lost without their implants. They don't know how to fight independently." The humans quickly began using this weakness across all their operations. Every major engagement now included electromagnetic warfare specialists who could disrupt alien coordination at crucial moments. The Zilithians found themselves fighting blind, unable to communicate with their commanders or coordinate with their fellow soldiers. General Throckmore watched the battle reports with growing horror. His elite forces, the finest soldiers in the Zilithian Empire, were being systematically destroyed by what he had thought were primitive humans. The creatures weren't just adapting to alien tactics. They were turning every Zilithian advantage into a disadvantage. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're losing contact with ground units faster than we can deploy them. The humans are using some kind of jamming technology that's interfering with our neural networks." Throckmore realized that he had made a fundamental error. He had assumed that superior technology automatically meant superior tactics. But the humans had shown that intelligence and creativity could overcome any technological advantage. The aliens made their final major mistake when they attempted to use human prisoners as leverage. A Zilithian unit had captured a group of civilian engineers who had been working on Earth's defensive systems. The alien commander believed that threatening these prisoners would force the humans to negotiate. Instead, Lieutenant Commander Brooks saw an opportunity. The aliens had consolidated their prisoners in a downtown office building, turning it into a heavily defended command post. Brooks studied the building for hours, then developed a plan that would rescue the prisoners and capture the facility. "Intact, we're not going to attack the building," Brooks explained to his assault team. "We're going to make the building attack itself." Brooks had discovered that the office building's automated systems could be controlled remotely. The elevators, fire suppression systems, air conditioning, and even the building's structural supports could all be manipulated from the building's central computer. The rescue operation began at midnight. While the Zilithian guards watched the streets for a conventional assault, Brooks' team accessed the building's computer systems from a location 3 miles away. They began systematically shutting down life support systems on the upper floors while flooding the lower levels with fire suppression foam. The aliens found themselves trapped in a building that seemed to be fighting against them. Elevators stopped working, lights went out, and the air conditioning system began pumping out smoke instead of clean air. In the confusion, human special forces entered through maintenance tunnels and rescued the prisoners while capturing crucial alien intelligence. "The humans are using everything as a weapon," the surviving Zilithian commander reported to General Throckmore. "Their buildings fight us. Their streets fight us. Even their radio waves fight us. How do we combat an entire planet that is turned against us?" Throckmore had no answer. The Zilithian Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Every human seemed to be a tactical genius, capable of turning any situation into an advantage. "Contact the High Command," Throckmore ordered. "Tell them we need the entire Imperial fleet, and tell them that Earth is not a training ground. It's the home of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Zilithian Imperial fleet arrived at Earth's solar system like a storm of metal and plasma fire. 57 battleships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot, surrounded the small blue planet where their forces had met. Such unexpected resistance. Admiral Keffer, commander of the Imperial fleet, had come to end this embarrassing situation once and for all. "Scan the planet," Admiral Keffer ordered from the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Eternal Conquest. "I want to know every defensive position, every weapon, every hiding place these humans have prepared." What the scanners revealed shocked the entire alien command staff. Earth's orbital space was filled with debris from their own ships, twisted metal and alien technology that had been welded together into defensive platforms. The humans had built an entire defensive network using salvaged Zilithian equipment. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral of Earth's first space-based defense force, watched the alien fleet from his command ship. The vessel had been built in secret over the past month, using a combination of human engineering and captured alien technology. It wasn't as large or powerful as the Zilithian ships, but it had something the aliens didn't expect: human creativity. "Sir," reported Captain Amy Rodriguez from her new position as Fleet Communications Officer, "we're detecting 57 enemy vessels. They're moving into bombardment formation." Morrison nodded calmly. The humans had been preparing for this. Moments since the first alien landing. Every battle, every captured piece of equipment, every lesson learned from fighting the Zilithians had been leading to this final confrontation. "Signal all units," Morrison ordered. "Execute Operation Thunderstrike." Colonel Pete Harrison stood in the hangar bay of the Orbital Defense Station, watching his drop troopers prepare for humanity's first space-based combat mission. The soldiers had trained for every kind of warfare imaginable, but they were about to attempt something that no human had ever done before: boarding actions against alien starships. "Remember," Harrison told his troops, "we've studied their ship designs from the captured intelligence. The Zilithians build everything the same way: find the command center, take out their leadership, and turn their own ships against the rest of the fleet." The drop troopers who had once parachuted from aircraft into enemy territory were now preparing to launch themselves through space to attack vessels that were the size of small cities. Each soldier wore a modified spacesuit equipped with captured alien technology and human innovations that would allow them to survive in the vacuum of space. Admiral Keffer watched his fleet move into position with satisfaction. The humans had shown remarkable resistance for primitives, but they had no answer for the overwhelming firepower of an entire Imperial fleet. Once Earth's cities were reduced to ash, the remaining human survivors would serve as excellent slaves for the Empire. "Charge all main weapons," Keffer commanded. "We'll start with their largest population centers and work our way down to the smaller settlements." The massive plasma cannons of the Zilithian fleet began to glow with deadly energy. Each weapon could punch through the armor of any known starship, and had the power to melt entire mountains. Against a planet with no orbital defenses, they would be unstoppable, but Earth was no longer defenseless. The first surprise came when the humans launched their counterattack before the aliens could. Fire. Hidden launch bays around Earth's moon opened simultaneously, releasing thousands of small craft that accelerated toward the alien fleet at impossible speeds. "What are those?" demanded Admiral Keffer as his sensors tried to analyze the incoming objects. Dr. Helen Carter had spent weeks developing the perfect weapon to use against the Zilithian fleet. The objects approaching the alien ships weren't missiles or fighters. They were boarding pods, each one carrying a squad of drop troopers and equipped with alien shield technology that would allow them to penetrate the enemy ships' defenses. "Sir," reported the Zilithian sensor officer, "the objects appear to be some kind of boarding craft, but that's impossible. These humans don't have the technology for space-based assault operations." Admiral Keffer was about to learn that humans had been perfecting assault operations for thousands of years. The only thing that had changed was the battlefield. Colonel Harrison's pod smashed through the hull of the Eternal Conquest like a meteor. cutting through alien armor with modified plasma cutters. The moment the pod breached the ship's interior, Harrison and his team poured out into the alien vessel's corridors. Moving with the deadly efficiency that had made Earth's drop troopers legendary, the Zilithian crew had never faced boarding actions before. Their military doctrine was based on ship-to-ship combat at long range, with clean battles fought between opposing fleets. They were completely unprepared for human soldiers running through their ships, setting explosives and capturing critical systems. "Secure the command deck," Harrison ordered his squad. "And remember, we want their communication equipment intact. We're going to send a message that the entire galaxy will hear." Major Susan Kelly led her team through the ventilation systems of the battleship Domination's Will. Using the same urban warfare tactics that had proven so effective on Earth, the aliens had built their ships like cities, with wide corridors and central command areas that were perfect for the kind of fighting that humans excelled at. "These aliens never learned to fight dirty," Kelly told her soldiers as they moved through the ship's maintenance tunnels. "They build everything according to regulations, with no thought for defense against unconventional attacks." The battle for the Zilithian fleet lasted 6 hours, with human boarding teams fighting their way through ship after ship. The aliens had superior technology and numbers, but they had never trained for the kind of chaotic, close-quarters combat that humans had been perfecting for millennia. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks found himself in the reactor core of the massive dreadnought, placing explosive charges that would turn the alien flagship into a weapon against its own fleet. The aliens had built their ships to withstand external attacks, but they had never considered that an enemy might detonate their reactors from the inside. "Charges set," Brooks reported to Admiral Morrison. "When this thing goes, it's going to take half their fleet with it." But Morrison had a different plan. The humans weren't just trying to destroy the alien fleet. They were trying to send a message to the entire Zilithian Empire. "Negative, Brooks," Morrison said. "We're not here to destroy ships, we're here to capture them. The galaxy needs to see that humans don't just defend their home. They take the fight to their enemies." Dr. Carter had made her final breakthrough while analyzing the captured alien command codes. The Zilithian ships were all connected to a central command network, just like their soldiers. If the humans could take control of the flagship, they could potentially control the entire fleet. "Admiral," Carter reported from her position aboard the lead human vessel, "if we can get Harrison's team to the main command center of the Eternal Conquest, we can turn their entire fleet against them." Colonel Harrison received the new orders and smiled grimly. His team had already secured most of the alien flagship, and the Zilithian crew was retreating to their final defensive positions. The aliens were fighting bravely, but they were fighting the wrong kind of war. "All teams, converge on the main command deck," Harrison ordered. "We're about to show these aliens what happens when they mess with Earth." The final battle for the Zilithian flagship took place in the ship's massive command center, where Admiral Keffer made his last stand with his remaining officers. The alien commander fought with desperate courage, but he was facing soldiers who had been trained to win against impossible odds. When the fighting ended, Colonel Harrison stood on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, looking out at the Zilithian fleet that was now under human control. Dr. Carter's team had successfully infiltrated the command network, turning the aliens' own coordination system against them. "Admiral Morrison," Harrison reported, "the fleet is ours. 43 ships captured, 14 destroyed, 0 human vessels lost." Admiral Morrison activated the communication system that would broadcast his message across the galaxy. Every Zilithian ship, every alien world, every species in the Empire would hear what he had to say. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," he announced. "The Zilithian Empire made a serious mistake when they called our world a practice exercise. They thought they were testing their cadets against primitive opponents. Instead, they gave us a chance to study their technology, learn their tactics, and prepare for what comes next." The message continued, and every word sent chills through the alien listeners. "Earth was never your training ground. Earth was our training ground. Every war in human history, every battle, every conflict we've ever fought was preparation for this moment. We have been training to fight superior enemies and win for thousands of years. Morrison paused, letting the weight of his words sink in across the galaxy. The Zilithian Empire wanted to see how humans fight. Now you know, we turn every disadvantage into an advantage. We make weapons out of everything around us. We never surrender, and we never stop learning how to be more dangerous than we were before. The final words of his message would become legendary throughout the galaxy.